Welcome, welcome. Tonight is another fun painting class with me, Paige Weber, your host here. And tonight we are actually going to be painting a portrait. I know it sounds very intimidating, but don't be intimidated. Yeah, don't be intimidated because we're going to have some fun. So I just want to say welcome. If you're tuning in here with me tonight, go ahead and let me know in the comments. I'm excited to see that Laurel is here with family. So yay, I'm so glad you're here. And happy early birthday tomorrow. Let's see. Tonight we're going to, like I said, be painting a person, a portrait, and hopefully I can make this process approachable for you. I wanted to do something a little bit different. So hang in there with me. If you need the resources for this class, you're going to want to go ahead and hit the chat or the description below and grab that imagery. This is actually an image by Christopher Campbell. He is an artist on Unsplash, and I just thought this was a great, easier portrait to do, and I loved the color, so that is why I chose that. So again, hit the chat and check out those links. I'm also right now going to throw a link in here before I forget. This is actually a link to a class over at the Pocatello Art Center. Bob Beeson is a teacher over there, and he just did a portrait class. So if you're interested in dimensions of the face, this is the perfect class for you, and I'm throwing it in now. So you can access that later at a later time and watch it. It's really a great class, and it's about 30 minutes there. What else can I tell you tonight? Tonight we are going to be using colors like burnt sienna. We're going to be using a blue and some yellow, some opera pink or coral, or even an alizarin crimson, whatever you have, and we'll kind of work through that. I'm going to show you some different colors to help with this skin tone, and I hope in the future we can actually do a wide variety of skin tones. I just loved this little red-haired girl, so that is why I chose her. Also, I want to say if you have questions, please throw them in chat. This class might be a little bit longer. I'm not sure if I got to the class duration, but tonight might be just a tad bit longer. We'll kind of see how far we get tonight because there's a lot of drawing kind of involved in this. But again, there is a tracing sheet. You'll want to access that in the comments if you want to do that. All right, what else can I tell you? I think that is going to get us started. So let's switch our camera view. We have a bit of a different setup today. I'm at a different desk, so we're going to see how it works today. All right, so camera view. All right, so I'm going to zoom out here. So this is what we are going to be painting today. And okay, I'm not sure what's happening with my cameras. Really sorry about that. I think I must have hit something on accident. So let's try to do this again. You know, I have really good luck with StreamYard, have a lot less issues, but I am not infallible. There's okay, we're going to try it a third time, guys. Really sorry. Okay, let's see if this will work. All right, Laurel, hopefully you can see me now. Let's get this banner out of the way and let's get to drawing. It looks like I am online here. And Keeping it real. Don't move the camera, apparently. I'm going to have to move it back, though. Ah, don't lose my stream. Okay. All right. I think we're going to make it, guys. Okay, good. All right. Sorry for that. Okay. So let's see. First, I'm going to transfer my image to my paper, and then we're going to talk about skin color here really quickly. So as you are working with me, you're going to want to transfer your drawing. As you can see, I have sketched on the back of this image, and I'm just going to tape it down, and we'll make this very quick while I talk about zones of the face and color. So oftentimes when you look at portraits, if you look at a portrait of a person, you know, the coloring often is kind of a yellower color here at the top, and then we get real rosy across the cheeks and the nose. I think that's because we have blood vessels here. And then oftentimes we have bluer colors here, especially, you know, men who have 5 o'clock shadows, you know, that's kind of a bluer color. And so sometimes when you look at portraits, you'll see kind of variations of that in a subtle and sometimes not so subtle way. You can mix a skin tone with your basic colors. So you don't have to buy a special pigment for skin color, but if you do a lot of portraits, you might be interested in picking up skin tone colors. I think this is called Jaune, and that's Jaune, brilliant. And I think one of them is Brilliant 1 and Brilliant 2. And I often, when I do portraits, I use that pigment. These colors are a Holbein pigment from Holbein Paints, but I imagine you can get them through Daniel Smith and or any other kind of watercolor supply company. Also, I have some beam paints here. I think one of these is Bread, and another one is their gouache color, and it's kind of a peachy color, and it's also a great color that you can use for skin tones to warm them up. You know, of course, we want a warm skin tone. Oops. We don't want the skin tone looking kind of dark or grayed out or anything like that. So we like to use those rich colors, and we will be using burnt sienna tonight. So if you have a burnt sienna, we'll be definitely using that for her hair. If you want to mix an orange, we'll be using some orange for her hair as well. And let's see, did I do this eye? I can't remember. And we'll be using a blue. Now I have a color, I actually gave Laurel one of these colors. It is called a Malori blue. It's a really pretty blue color, and I will be using that tonight for her eyes and for her shirt. But if you have an ultramarine blue, or you have a blue that you prefer, or if you want to make her eyes green or something to that effect, you can do that as well. Let's see. And if you need a little extra time today to do a little sketching here, you just let me know in the comments, and I will kind of just keep babbling. I'm going to demonstrate these two colors, so that will buy you a little bit of time. All right, I think I have got everything here. So that might be a little bit hard to see. Let me know. Of course, again, if you're just tuning in, you're going to want to go to the description below and grab the materials for this class. So there is a reference image that looks like this, and you can trace this image, and then you'll also have the reference image. Again, this particular image I got off of Unsplash, and I have to credit Christopher Campbell for that image. Okay, so I'm going to snag a little scrap paper here, and I'm just going to demonstrate these colors for you. And brushes. So oftentimes, if I'm doing a Caucasian person, I'm using one of these two colors or a mixture of them. And you can see this one's kind of milky. It's a little more opaque. Let's zoom in a little bit here. And you can see that's a real light color. And then you have this kind of peachy color. They are both called Jaune. I call it Jaune. I guess that's my class in French when I was in high school, but Jaune, brilliant. And I'll write that down here for you. Sorry for the noise here. Okay. Also, let's see. You can see this peachy color that is a beam color. Maybe you can't see that there. And you can see it's pretty close. This is actually one of her gouaches, which means that that's got white chalk in it and makes it a little bit more opaque. And then I think this is the one that's actually called Bread. So you can see this is a great color for the hair as well. Okay, so these are great colors to use. I think we'll try to mix a skin tone because a lot of you don't have these particular colors, but I wanted you to be aware that they exist. So if you really want to get into portraiture, you can access some colors that are convenience colors. So I have a wide variety of colors here. I have this Naples yellow, which is also, actually I'm going to put that on here too, that you can see it's very close to this color as well. So this is Naples yellow. So you can mix an orange. So if you wanted to, you could take any kind of pink pigment. This is a coral color by Daniel Smith, and you can add, this is a Hansa yellow, and you can kind of create this peachy color on your own. You can really water it down. This is a little bit pinker. I might have a little more coral than I want, but that's pretty close there, as you can see, not bad. So we'll try to use that. And what I'm going to do is I am going to get a bigger brush. I actually am going to use a square brush just to change things up a little bit, or a flat brush. And I'm going to wet down her face here. Oh, and it looks like, hey, Linda, it's nice to see you here. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome, and I'm glad that you can join us tonight. Hopefully you can follow along with us. Have to let me know how the class goes. And welcome. So we're going to work a little bit of wet into wet, and I'm going to try to avoid the eyes to preserve the white of the eye. And oops, hopefully I didn't get it. If you get it, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm going to get the ear here, and you can go over the lips, eyebrows. Okay. And get her kind of chest area here. And I'm really sorry you're going to hear my cats in the background. They're locked out, and you know how that goes when you have cats. So they'll be meowing. So I'm going to hit this with this color and just lightly move the bead through here. You can even work into the hairline a little bit. How's that looking? Let's move it in a little bit. Let's see if we can get in a little closer. There we go. And I'm just moving this soft color through the face. If yours is too dark, just go ahead and diffuse it with a little bit of water. And again, you can use any of the colors that I have mentioned, but I wanted to do a little bit of mixing here for you so you wouldn't be intimidated by approaching this skin color. So on my end, she looks pretty pink, but that's okay. And then what you can do is you can go in with a yellow, like your Naples yellow, and tap it into these other areas. I'm going to, well, you can't see that. Let's zoom out here for a minute. Kind of tap a yellow or like an Indian yellow. You can just lightly distribute it up here, maybe down the nose. Then I'll tap into a little bit of, I love opera pink. So if you know me at all, you'll know that I love this kind of neon-y pink color. And I'm diluting it really nicely, but I'm going to tap it into the cheek area, the ear, in the lip area, just real lightly. Let's zoom in here a little bit so you can kind of see this a little. All right. And I always try, to err on caution here. So you can always add pigment later, but sometimes, if you have too much pigment in there, it can be problematic to get it out. And I still feel like I can add a little bit more color to her nose and her cheeks. We'll kind of see how this does. Oftentimes, when you're using watercolor, it will dry lighter than it looks on the paper. And so most watercolors are like that. Now, I have had less experience with my core watercolors in that regard. They are pretty true to what they look like when they're wet. Okay. And you can mix a purple. I have this purple paint that I have made. This is kind of like a mineral purple color. And also you can mix your purple color. So if you have an ultramarine blue and an alizarin crimson or any kind of blue with red, you can get that purple. I might just try to tap this in, down here. I just love purples for shadows. There's the old adage, warm light, cool shadows, cool light, warm shadows. And so, add that to your list of things to know. All right. So for this first run through, this looks pretty good. I see some areas that I missed here. I'm going to touch those up. And now I'm going to hit the hair dryer. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. I'm going to hit this with a hair dryer and I'm going to mute you. So keep painting along. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here so you can kind of see how this looks so far. It's looking pretty good. And let's zoom out here for you. Now, I think, whoops, I'm zooming in. So now I think too, what I might do here is hit the hair a little bit and get in there with kind of an orangey, burnt umber color. Again, if you're just tuning in, you can grab the resource material for this class in the chat there. I'm going to scoot this over and get a little bit bigger area here. I'm going to get into my burnt umber here. So you can see this is a great color for red hair. And if we look at our image, where did I put that? When I'm doing hair, I really look at where we have our dark areas. So we have some darker auburn here, and then we have the light hitting from this direction, and we have some lighter areas here. So let that be your guide as you are adding pigment into the hair, is where the light hits. And all right, I'm also going to mix up a little bit of an orange color. So if you are trying to achieve an orange color, you can use yellow and red to mix that color. I'm going to use, this is a really vibrant orange, more than I need. I just love her hair so much. Okay. So first I'm going to go in and just do a little wet and wet here. I have pigment on my brush here, so you'll be able to see it. And I'm going to have to move fast. Idaho is a dry place. Again, you can move into this pink that's kind of moving into the hair. Okay. And the neck here. So I'm going to kind of hit this here with this orange color. I'm going to hit this area. You could actually hit the whole, all of the hair here. Let's see where. Okay. Get it over here a little bit. Let's see, and her hair kind of comes in here, so we'll tap. Whoops. Tap into there. And then now I'm going to hit my burnt sienna and start tapping into these areas. Now I might need a little more pigment. As you can see, I can just tap in there, kind of clean up the edge, tap in, get a little more pigment here. Start hitting these areas along the jawline where it's darker. You can hit down here. And there's the shadow that runs right here. So I'm just going to keep tapping in. It's dark here. Now I have some pigment in an area that I don't want it. I'm going to show you how I fix that. Got some dark here. And this isn't the only pass that you have to make for this. Don't forget to round that up there. It's just the first pass. What's nice though is that you can get a little bit of blending, some really beautiful watercolor blending, and some granulation, which is so nice. Again, I'm going to tap some more in here. So I got some paint where I don't want it right here. I can take a brush that's semi-dry here and run it along this ear. Kind of clean that up there. Again, I've got a little bit of stuff happening here. So I'm just going to soften that edge with this brush. Okay, so now you know what we do. We're going to hit that hair dryer. We'll hit the hair again, but I want to get some pigment down. So we've got some stuff happening that makes this look like a portrait. So I'm going to mute myself and get to drying. Keep painting along. All right, how are you guys doing? Am I moving too fast for you? Let me know. So now we can kind of work on some more features of the face. Let's see. I have a wide variety of brush sizes here. Most of the time I'm using round brushes, but I'm just sharing with you. A lot of times my students will ask me what I'm using. And I have a wide variety of brushes, so you can see there. So we can keep working on her face and adding a little bit more pigment to her face. And so let's add just a little bit more color to that. Let's see if I can scoot that over so you can have both of these. Looks like my hair is drying a little bit too. Let's scoot this over. Okay. So as you can see, I've done some shading here. We've got this area that is facing away from the sun. And let's see. We can do another pass with this peachy color. I'm just going to add a little bit more yellow to it to make it a little more peachy, a little less yellow. And right now I'm using this Naples yellow, but if you have an Indian yellow or a warm cad yellow, you could even use a Hansa yellow. But you can see I just want this real subtle color here, and I'm going to do a little shading here. And you can actually move into her eye area here. If you want to soften a line, of course I don't, there we go, we've got a towel here. You dip your brush in water, you tap it on your paper towel, and then you just run it along any edge that you might want to soften. And we'll just kind of run alongside the face here and her jawline. And I'm going to zoom in here because it's probably pretty hard to see that. So you can see this is real subtle. You can add even more color if you're feeling like it's too subtle. You can soften your edges if you need to here. And of course, move into this ear area. I'm going to scrub this a little bit. And we have these areas where the eye kind of recesses a little bit in the socket area. It's in shadow because of her hair. So we'll want to get both sides there of her nose. And if you have questions for me in the meantime, don't be afraid to use chat. I will do my best to answer those questions. Now I have a hard edge kind of developing here. And I'm just going to kind of soften some of that. Sometimes that happens. We're also going to want to get underneath the nose here. So down here at the bottom. Now that is too much paint, as you can see, but you can kind of see what's happening here. And I will soften that up. This is kind of the area where it turns away from the light. We'll get her little divot here. We will put more shadow in there later, but for now, that's okay. And also under the eyes here. And I'm just kind of building upon this portrait, giving her dimension. We can even go into her eyebrows. I think I'm going to at least go into one here. Whoops, that is not the right color. Zoom out here. Where is my bird Sienna? There's a bird Sienna. And I'm going to hit this one eyebrow because it is dry. And maybe this other side hopefully is not too wet here. Still a little wet. I'll just lift that. That's okay. Okay. And I'm going to mix a little bit more purple. Again, you can use alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue to create a beautiful, maybe I will do that for you to demo that. So this is my ultra blue, little alizarin crimson. If you have a pre-made purple, that is fine too. You can see this is really close to that mineral purple that I used. So this is a great time to give our nostrils a little bit of definition. We don't want it to be too dark, but we need to define these a little bit. We can always go back in and give them a little definition, but I'm just gonna tap that in there for now and let it dry. And maybe while that dries, we can actually mix a little bit of blue and get her eyes in there so she looks like she is not an alien, and get her shirt painted in. How are you guys doing? Are you still hanging in there with me? So the blue that I'm going to be using is this. It's called a Malori blue, and it is a blue that I have mixed, but you could, or that I have made. You can use ultramarine blue or phthalo blue, whatever color that you want. I'm going to mix it up here. This blue is very granulated, and it's probably because as I was mulling the paint, probably could use a little bit more mulling, but I love the effect, and I really love this color. It's just a real beautiful blue that is kind of, it feels like a dusty blue to me a little bit. And for me, I've got to mix up quite a bit of this because it is not as dark or pigmented, I feel, as some of my other blues. Okay. So I have some really teeny tiny brushes. I may have to dip into that to get into this eye area. I'm going to try to get as much water off of this as I can so it doesn't give me a surprise and dump into my eye area. But I'm just going to, whoops, and I got into that area I didn't want to. I'm just going to get this iris this color here. See if I can fix that a little bit. I'm not so worried about the pupil yet. So there we have some eyes, and what we can do is concentrate on her shirt now too. So I'm using a bigger round brush. I'm just going to paint that in. All right. Try to move fast and move that bead around. This is the bead here, that pooling of pigment a little bit. You can move it around. And the reason we do that is so we have less marking, and we have a nice smooth gradation there. All right. So we will move back into the skin here, but we'll hop around a little bit. I'm going to work on her lips next, and the lips can be really any color that you choose to do. I really love this quinacridone coral that I have seen, or that I have gotten through Daniel Smith. It's just a real pretty pinky color. And so I am diluting it down a little bit, and I'm going to hit my top lip. The top lip faces away, so it's usually in shadow. So the top lip is generally darker than the lower lip. And sometimes it's a little bit darker in the corners. And then I will just add a little bit of water here and come around on this lower lip, kind of at the bottom here. Because it's starting to create this form shadow that is headed away from your light source. So it's got a little bit of shadow in it too. And you can soften this edge if you want. I'm trying not to move into my other paint up on the upper lip just yet, and we'll hit this again. But also, while you're in here with a little bit of pink pigment, oftentimes in the corners of our eyes, we have a little bit of pink in there. So you can add a little bit of pink into the corner there, making sure that you don't get into the blue that's still wet. Sometimes also we have a little bit more pink here underneath the eye where the eye bags are. You can also bring some of this pink into the nose. Because we have those blood vessels there. And add some color there. We still have quite a bit to do as far as the skin here, but sometimes I like to, when I'm painting, kind of scrub the page, soften those lines, add colors into it as I'm painting. Okay. So I'm going to hit this with my hair dryer so we can kind of keep moving along and I don't accidentally bump into this blue color. So bear with me. I'm going to mute myself real quick, and any questions you might have, you could throw them in the comments. All right, let's see. Okay, so let's hit the skin a little bit more. I'm going to take, I don't know what size this is, but this might be about an 8, I'm thinking. And we'll hit our skin a little bit more. I really enjoy creating layers to create depth. So I'm going to get a little bit of my pink ready here. And then again, I'm going to get some peach color. Let's see if I can salvage this color here. That is a little more orange than I want. I'll hit it with a little bit of this Naples yellow just to tone it down. Sometimes what you can do is hit a color with an opposite color to mute it. So I just put some kind of a greeny color in there. Let's see how it looks on our chart. Not bad. So I'm going to go in here under the eyes. Again, once we kind of define the eyelash line, this will start looking a little better too. But I'm going to keep moving into some of these shadows to help give some dimension because we have lightened up here. Again, I want to hit her chin here maybe. And the bridge of her nose. You can add a little bit of pink here. I'm going to hit her cheeks again. More pink here, definitely watering it down a little bit. She's got some beautiful skin tone here, lots of rosiness in her skin. And we're in shadow over here, so I'm going to bring some rosiness into this side, tie in down here. And we'll need to put a shadow over here too. Whoops, now I hit the wrong color. Oh no. Never fear. Cotton towel is here. Let's try that again. And, you know, depending on what kind of watercolor artist you are, some people really like, here you can see in this one, we've got some harder edges here. I mean, that's what makes watercolor wonderful. I often will blend stuff out a little bit, but it's sheerly personal preference. Let's see. I think I'm going to soften this area here, just scrubbing a little bit and tapping back in with my brush, kind of lifting that up there. We have this shadowy area under here. And we will be adding a cool color there. But for the time being, just really trying to give this form. And she's kind of got this little cheekbone area. Soften that. And we can't forget her ear. So when you're painting portraits, you kind of really want to be conscious of the ear, of course, because her ear is in shadow. It's going to be darker. Okay, so while that is drying, we can zoom in here and do her eyes a little bit more, so we can really give them definition. Now, because I'm working so small, again, I'm using this tiny brush. Do your best with what you've got here. And if you have a Payne's gray color, or even a black, you can see this is a soda-like color, but it's really kind of like a dark blue color. So oftentimes when you look at our eyes, and I'm going to grab this really quick so you can see here, our eyelid overlaps our eyeball, and what happens is it creates a shadow over the whole eye. And when you're painting eyes, that is a critical part of getting the eyes right. So when you're looking at your reference images, just note that. Oftentimes anymore, things are photoshopped, and the white of the eye is photoshopped a lot of the time, but truly there's always a shadow that is in the eye. So like when I'm looking at this image, let's see if I can find my reference photo for now. It's not the best here, but we have some dark grays in around this inner eye. So we want to paint those in. And then you have your lash line here, so we can kind of draw in the lash line a little bit. And as you can see, it starts really making that eye look so much better. Of course, we have some darker areas here because we're in shadow. So there's not a ton of white that is going to be showing up on this side. And I'm going to treat this other side to the same treatment. So we'll kind of define this lash line a little bit, go into the inner corner of the eye. Hopefully you can see that. Get a little bit darker pigment here. So I kind of paint that in, and then you can soften it with a little bit of water. As you can see, most of the painting that I'm doing here, I'm really diluting the paint down. So I always think it's always wise to err with caution. We don't want to lose the pink that's on the inner corner of the eye, but we do want to kind of define this area. And as you can see, my blue kind of ran into below her eye there, line there. So I'm just cleaning that up a little bit. So I'm going to just do a little bit more here, and you can run this over the blue in the eye too. But you can see now we're starting to get some definition there. Of course, we don't want to forget the lid here. You can't see that very well, so you could go in with a dark color, or you could use your burnt sienna and define that crease. See, I'm going to do this guy over here too. One of my YouTube viewers noted how many times that I say guys, so I'll really try to work on that, but you don't really realize that when you're talking into a camera. Also, now is a great time if you need to clean up the shape of your eyes. You can do that. Irises are round. Sometimes they can get wonky, especially with watercolor. So if you need to fix it, now is a good time to do that. Of course, I do have this teeny tiny brush. And with a little extra pigment, you can also kind of create that shadow that's left by the eyelid in the top there too. Let's see. Dip into my pigment. So again, I mentioned this at the top of the hour, but if you're just tuning in and you are wanting to do more portraiture, I have included a link to a great class by Bob Beeson in our chat there or in the discussion below. And I highly recommend that you check it out if you're just getting started on your journey. It kind of goes into where things are placed and how they align to one another on the face for a standard kind of portrait. And Bob is a great teacher and a great guy, and it is a good class. Okay, so she's starting to look like someone. Let's see, I'm going to look and see. Actually, I'm going to put her pupil in as well and really define the lash line a little bit more. So I'm going to dip into my Sodalite or Payne's gray color. If you have a black, you can use that as well. And I'm going to just define the lash line a little bit more. Now, lashes can be tricky as you're doing portraiture because if they're too much, sometimes they can really change the feeling of your portrait, and you don't want them to feel too phony or fake. So sometimes I just kind of line them up and kind of soften them a little. You can't see them quite so much over here, but just put in some nubs there. And then she has a little bit underneath here. That kind of rim the eye. Okay, now I'm going to put in her pupil. This will also help her kind of come to life here. Now, people often like to start with the eyes when they're doing any kind of drawing or whatnot. I know I did when I first started drawing because they're a favorite place to start. But as we've laid down all this color, she starts to come to life, and no one area is overdeveloped or out of proportion by doing this. Okay, so we are at our hour. I'm going to keep painting. Hopefully you're still hanging in there with me. I'm going to hit her nose, nostrils here because I can go in with a little bit darker color and kind of define these. Now I'm not using black, you can, but oftentimes that makes it a little starker than I think we often want it to be. So I'm going back in with this purple color. Here. And I'm going to define, all right, Colin, hey, thank you. Thank you. Let's see. I'm going to define the bottom of her nose just a little bit. With this, and also this little divot. If you watch Bob's class, he'll tell you, it will tell you what the divot is. But we can add a little bit of purple into the divot. We also have some more shading here underneath that nose area and here on the sides. So we can kind of go in and define this. Let's see. Maybe tap that a little bit. Define the nostrils a bit because they're sort of getting lost. and feather this out because there is a shadow kind of there on the side of the nose. And let's see, might kind of use a mixture of the purple and this burnt sienna to get a little bit of shadowing under the nose. Now that looks like a lot, but I'm going to soften it. For me, watercolor is all about kind of using that subtle softening ability. Kind of develop the nose a little bit more. And really, you know, portraiture is hard. So if you struggle, don't beat yourself up. It takes a while to kind of get there. But advice that I would give is really look at the shapes of the shading areas and see if you can just paint in that shape area, shading with your paint. And sometimes that can really help your portraiture. Instead of getting intimidated by the process, really evaluate just the shapes. And we could actually go in with this purpley color to do a little shadow here. I can soften that up a little. Okay. All right. Let's zoom in here a little bit. Okay. I just feel like this isn't dark enough here, so I'm just going to add some pigment here at the bridge and inner corner of the eye. And then I will soften it just a hair. Let's see. I can diffuse this out kind of along the bridge and underneath the eye. We can define these eye bags a little bit more. Maybe the corners of her mouth. Sometimes, you know, we forget about things like the little corners of the mouth, and this really helps define those features. Let's see, I think we can also make her eyebrows a little bit darker. And one of my teachers in college, he always made the inner corner of the eyebrow darker. I'd say just observe your subject and see if that is how it looks. I mean, in this day and age with people who have really dark eyebrows as it is and big eyebrows, it's a different day and age for eyebrows a little bit, but okay. And another thing that I can't forget to do is the shadow. If you look here, we have the shadow that is left by the hair that's on the face. And so we also have a shadow here that we're going to want to paint in too. We have a little bit of shadow on the side of the face too. So I will use this purple color. Again, that's ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson that I've mixed. And I'm going to water it down just a hair, and we'll see how this kind of goes. Let's see, actually, it's always good to have a test paper kind of with you too, so you can kind of see. So we could actually use this for this portion of the hair as well. So it's kind of just like this little cornucopia shape. And just going to soften that there. Then we can kind of move this along the side of the face here. If you want to, you can soften that edge. And we will can put a harder edge in the hair if we want to. But you can see how this gives this dimension now. All right, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And again, for Laurel and folks, I know that this is a little bit longer class, so if you have to go, that is fine. I'm going to put a little bit of this purple underneath her lower lip here too. Soften it out. You can do it along the chin here. We have this form shadow here. That might be a little dark there, but soften it up a little. Okay, so we're getting somewhere here. I'm going to go into her lips again. You can use any kind of combination of color that you like. I really love this soft coral color. I'm actually going to switch out palettes here. You can even mix a little bit of your burnt sienna. Sometimes I just experiment with colors and mix them. And so I would really encourage you not to be afraid to do that. You can always have a secondary paper here on the side so you can test and see what that looks like. Let's see, there we go. But I'm going to switch out my brush here for a minute. And I'm kind of looking at her lips and looking at where we have some darker areas. So I'm going to, along this area, paint in this color. She's got a little bit of color up here. We again can add this form shadow here. Kind of in the corners here. And then if you need to soften it, you can do that. So we can go back into the lips here, but again, I'm going to keep kind of moving around here, moving around and getting the shadows in there with our purple color. So, whoops, I got a lot of red in there. Let's add a little more blue. And what you can do is add in the shadow here on her neck. Now, as I look at this shadow, you can see this is the area that is in shadow here on her neck. I'm going to paint this in, moving the bead. And you can soften this edge here by tapping your brush in your water, running it along the edge here. And you can also actually use this purple color if you want to for this area here. Mine is pretty light, so I might need a little bit more mixture here because it's pretty dark right here in this area. You could even go back up into here, just along the hairline. We could add some dark here along the hair. Oops. All right. And you could even go back up into this area if you want to. Okay. I am going to add a little bit of more pink to her chest area here because I feel like she's washed out there. So I'm going to actually add more peachy pinky color to her area down here. And this is kind of just a bit of an intuitive process. It's kind of like, what do you like? We want our subjects to be warm. And alive feeling. So you can kind of keep looking at your subject and keep adding to it. Since I have this palette open here, you can kind of add the line to her shirt, and this is just another layer. Now you can see I got a little overzealous here with my pigment down below, but I think I'm okay with that. Do you have questions for me as we are painting along? I am going to also dip into my burnt umber here. Well, thanks, Laurel. I'm glad to know you're still here with me. I appreciate you being here. This is just years of kind of practice and just playing with it. So if you're, don't be hard on yourself if you struggle. It's just a matter of kind of playing with the paint and letting yourself go there and doing a little bit of painting. Don't be afraid. So I'm going to actually add a dark area here because I see that in my image. It's part of her, that part of your ear. I'm taking this burnt sienna and I'm going to utilize my brush here and create some darker areas here. And what I mean by utilizing your brush, I don't actually do this enough. Oh, I'm looking here. Yeah, the eyes are hard and blending is hard. Definitely more water and lighter pigments will help you. And then also making sure that your area is dry when you're moving back into them. So it definitely does take practice, but don't be discouraged because you will get there. I promise. It's a practice game. It's really getting used to using your paint and getting to know it. So okay, when I said using your brush, this is what I mean. So I have this great brush that I can do really thin lines with, and then I can press it down and do thicker lines. And that's what I mean by using your brush. Don't be afraid to use all the aspects of it, that thin line and thick line. Oftentimes when we're working with hair, we're thinking of it in chunks, not individual strands. So again, like I said, when you're looking at shadows and things, you're going to look at those and separate them out into shapes, and that will help. You can also use this to draw in lines. That's my husband. Class is going a little bit longer, so he wants to check in with me. Let's see. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see here. Again, I feel like I could have more shadows here. And you can draw those lines. One of the things that I really enjoy doing too is we have this great base color, this local color of this hair. And so when you're using a thin brush or any brush really, you can kind of draw in some of those lines and details. And because it's layered on top of one another, it creates some really nice detail and shape like you can see here. Whoops. Let's see. I'm going to hit this part of her hair as well. And you kind of just keep working that. She's got this beautiful hair. My niece has hair that isn't quite this auburny red. Hers is kind of a strawberry blonde auburn red color. It is gorgeous. And then maybe I see a dark area up here, so I'm gonna what do you think, guys? Okay. Well, that's probably a good start for us. My two gals look a little bit different than one another. You can see I have a little bit more red in this girl's hair, or I must have used that coral pigment when I did this first one for this class. But that gives you kind of an idea of how I approach portraits. And let's see, we'll switch here. So let's see. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them in chat for me. I would love to answer them. I do appreciate you being here, and I hope that you learned something new. Again, I want you to hit that class that is in the chat there. Go check out Bob's class. It is excellent, and it's only about 30 minutes. So when you have some spare time here, you can go ahead and check that out and look at the dimensions of the face. It will help kind of bring things together, I think, for you if you're just starting portraiture. So we have, if you want to learn more about me, you are welcome to go to ihavegumption.com. That has our calendar up there and with the class schedule usually. And you can just learn more about me. I want to say thank you to my subscribers, my Patreon subscribers. That's Laurel and Colin, who are great supporters of mine, and I really appreciate it. They help make this possible. And of course, I love watercolor, and so I hope that you fall in love with it too. And if you want to find me on social media, here are some links that you can find me there as well. You're probably tuning in from some channel of mine as it is. So anyway, thank you so much. I don't see any questions coming into the chat, but I appreciate you being here in this longer class, and I look forward to seeing you again. So let's see, I think next Thursday, today is the 8th, next Thursday is a Patreon only class, but I will be back on YouTube here the following Thursday. So you can catch me either on Patreon or on YouTube. So I'm going to say adios, really, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight.